In terms of addressing this challenge of how do we improve our outcomes, the first variable then is tracking the alliance. The second variable is equally interesting and I think commonsensical, and that is the outcomes of the service, making sure we know whether or not the client feels like they're making progress from visit to visit. And early on, all the way back in the 1980s, a researcher by the name of Ken Howard and his colleagues noticed that if clients were going to change in treatment, they tended to change earlier rather than later. This provided us with a clue. That clue was if clients weren't changing and we could know about it, then perhaps the therapist could alter the service that was being provided. Of course, all of this done in collaboration with the client, because collaboration via the alliance is the key. Initially, we had algorithms that were based on simply using percentile ranks, looking at how clients changed and tracked the clients against those percentile rankings over the course of treatment. More recently, and you're going to see this in just a moment, we've developed a very sophisticated set of predictive algorithms. Based on a sample of 250,000 clients, we're now able to identify when a particular person working with a particular therapist is either on or off track. We'll get into those details in a moment. I think what's important to note right now is that if we want to get better at our work, we first need to pay attention to when our view of the alliance is different from the client's, and number two, when the client is at risk for a negative or null outcome in the therapeutic process. How do we find that out? How can we find out if clients are not getting better or are at odds with us with regard to the experience of the relationship? Can't we just rely on our judgment? Well, the available evidence indicates that when we augment our judgment with a tool, that it is much more robust. And so late in the 1990s, my team and I worked together and we developed two very simple scales. The first one is called the Outcome Rating Scale. And as the name implies, it's a measure of whether or not the client is making progress. The second measure is the Session Rating Scale, or SRS. And once again, as the name implies, this is the client's assessment of the working relationship. When therapists begin using these tools in their practice, it takes some time to accommodate to them, but the research that's emerging is fairly clear. Integrating the tools into clinical practice leads to better outcomes. How much so? Well, you can as much as double or treble your effect size simply by asking your clients on an ongoing basis to discuss with you the progress or lack of progress that's being made, or difficulties in the relationship. In addition, clients tend to be retained longer in the service when outcomes are used and when the client needs the particular service or more of that particular service. In other words, it reduces dropout rates. In addition, in settings that have fully implemented the tools, there are fewer client complaints and the cost of services are less. The ORS and SRS have been used in multiple randomized clinical trials, and in February 2013, they were reviewed and approved by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration as an evidence-based practice.